Good morning everybody, welcome back to Fanblade. It is day 3 for me. You're seeing this as part 2. When we left off, I was wondering if I was going to use these two pickups and a pickguard to mount them on. I have decided that I am just going to go with that one because basically that's just the quickest and simplest way to make that happen. Also, that gives me the ability to leave this bit of the fingerboard stuck on here, which would, I mean, for a 3-string bass, nice to have that bit of extra range, even if it's going to be hard to sort of reach. Like, it's there. You can, if you really want to play those notes, you can. Also, that bit of fingerboard there, thumb rest, could be useful. My process for today is, step 1, I've got to get the neck pocket in, so that I can line up the neck and work out exactly where the pickup's going. Then I can cut the pickup cavity, then I can work out where the bridge is going. I've got to modify the bridge as well, cut that plate down a little bit. And once all that's done, then I can work on the neck. And this is actually where I want to spend the most time today, is getting the neck carved and getting that right. Because if it's not right, it's not right. It's a very narrow. I'm not too sure exactly what I'm going to encounter when I'm carving it and how it's going to feel, and I just want to be able to take my time and get that bit right. So that was just cleaning up the saw marks from cutting the taper last night, and just cleaning up the headstock a bit because it was annoying me. So that's looking a lot nicer now. Right, marking out. I have sanded the centre line off the body, so I need to grab the template and remark that. Then I can line up the neck with where it's supposed to be. I've got all of the measurements and everything. So I'll mark all of that out, then I'll know exactly where I am cutting on here, and I will also know exactly where the angle of this is going to go as it meets the body. So it's a little bit of a weird neck pocket, sort of this design. I've built a few of these now, and yeah, when you're adjusting the angle, it doesn't want to just tilt straight forward and back because you've got this straight line here. It wants to angle sort of that way. It wants to roll across that curve. So yeah, cutting a neck pocket on these, really interesting exercise in geometry. That is precisely what you want to see. You can pick up the body with the neck. There's nothing. There's nothing holding it in except friction. That's a perfect fit. There's a tiny little gap just on the side, but I think I can probably, mind you, I don't want to sand that out too much because it is a perfect fit. But yeah, this wood is so easy to carve. It's actually very soft. It responds to blades beautifully, and this is a very sharp chisel. But as I go in, it's crushing that way. So I've gone, or I should say, that way. So that's why that's opened up just a little bit on that side. Maybe if I'd done some more practice with my chisels, I would have remembered that. But yes, still got an excellent result. That's going to have to go down a little bit further and then angle it back. It is a bit of a process to fine-tune it, but it always seems to work rather well. I like that. There is a functionally perfect neck pocket. That's great. Cosmetically, not perfect. There is a tiny gap just on the very top of this edge here. Tiny little gap in there, and that does unfortunately allow the tiniest little bit of movement. But the rest of the pocket is holding that body on nice and tight. Underneath, perfectly flat across there. The angle is absolutely perfect, which of course you measure with working out where the bridge position is, and then just run a straight edge along it, and it's just right at the very top of that bridge saddle. What I can do is just put the tiniest little shim in on this side, and that'll stop any sideways movement, and then by the time it's finished, no one will be able to see it. There's quite a lot of other stuff I've got to do to this body anyway, just cosmetically, like there's nail holes and there's other bits and pieces going on. So, yeah, but that's solid. One of my favourite bases is a Quart Kerbo, and that's got a one pickup. It's a soap bar, and it is the centre of that pickup is 100mm from the bridge. Therefore, the centre of my pickup on this base is going there. Right. Well, there is a dry fit just to see how everything looks. Nothing's obviously bolted down at the moment, but it certainly looks like something. I had intended that these two, or four I should say, nail holes were going to be covered by pickguard. They're there. I can't really be bothered covering them up. I don't really have time to, which means that all of these dents and everything, I'm just going to leave them, let the wood tell its story. It was a door frame in someone's house probably for 60 years. I'm going to let it have its history. Let the wood have its history. There is one cosmetic thing that I am going to cover up though, because while I was carving that, I accidentally bashed the corner of it and put a massive dent in there. So instead of having the output jack on top like I'd intended through the pickguard, yeah, the output jack's going to be coming through that hole there. So, aside from that, yes, I think I am ready to go onto the neck. Now, carefully does it, and there we go. Essentially, I need to take off a lot of width here, and that is going to be taking place on the bandsaw initially, because there's quite a bit to slice off, and then by hand to round it all over, and I'm hoping it won't take too long. Okay, so I nearly made a huge mistake then. I have a jig for radiusing the board, but that works best before the neck is carved. And I was literally about to run off to the bandsaw and just sort of hold the thing on an angle and just slice these corners off now that I know where the curve is going. But if I did that, then I would have a few problems later on radiusing the board. So I'm glad I remembered my process. That's kind of what I was talking about yesterday with just remembering how this all goes together. It's not so much that there's any one process that I'll forget how to do, it's just forgetting the order that they have to go in. Because if you get it wrong, you can make life a lot harder for yourself. So before I do that, yes, I'm going to have to radius this. It's a very hot day, and I am going to get sweaty. That's a heck of a lot of sanding done. These are both, neck and body are both sanded out to 180, and they're feeling ever so very smooth. But they could be smoother. The process now is to apply the first layer of finish. This is the last thing I want to do tonight, is get some super glue on there, because of course super glue. It's great as a wood finish. Regular people who watch this channel and irregular people who watch this channel regularly will know that I have a proclivity towards superglue as a finish. Essentially, it's cyanoacrylate. Now, that is cyanide and acrylic, effectively, in liquid form. When you apply it to something, there's a chemical reaction with the moisture in the air, and the superglue will split off into cyanide gas, which gets up and is extraordinarily irritating in a lot of ways. So, fan, gloves, mask, the whole works. But what's left behind is acrylic plastic. It's very, very hard wearing, good looking, and you can polish it out to a high shine. Now, I'm not doing that just yet, because the one thing I need to do first, I've just realised as I'm talking to you now, is side dot markers. I need to do these. What I'm going to do is I've got some black and white side dot markers. I'm going to go black for the fret position markers, and the white just as standard markers on the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, etc. So yes, I will do that. I will drill a bunch of holes up here. I will mark them out first. Then I will drill a bunch of holes, stick the markers in, and then glue them in. And that'll be the first layer of super glue that goes on. You start with the water-thin stuff because it soaks in further. And then for subsequent coats, you can use a gel-type super glue, which just builds the finish faster. And if I can get that first layer of the water-thin soaked in to all of this tonight, then that can sit there and just set rock hard. I'll come in tomorrow, just lightly sand it back flat because it will raise some wood fibres, and I'll just sand it all off, and then just slap on a ton of glue. And hopefully this will all be done and assembled by the end of tomorrow night. That would be good now, wouldn't it? And here we are, it's day 7 of a 4-day build. Yeah, so things didn't quite go according to plan. Basically, we had the day where I was putting all of the glue on to make a nice finish, and it rained very heavily that morning, and then the sun came out and it got really, really hot. So it was humid, and super glue cures with the humidity in the air. And what was happening was that I was basically putting a little bit of the glue on the pad, going to wipe it on, and immediately gluing the pad to the guitar. So I just had to stop. I had to stop because it ruined the finish. I had to sand it all out and start again. I have got it back to the point where it is now fully sanded, fully polished. It's not quite perfect. It's a little bit uneven, but for an experimental base that I'm just building for myself, this is probably overkill anyway. It is polished. The neck is looking mighty fine. I am dead keen to put it together and play it. So that's where I'm up to. The first step of many is that I need to cut the bridge down. We're only going 3 saddles. I need to slice a bit off here. So I'm considering angle grinder I'm considering just doing it by hand and then cleaning it up with a file. I'll take these saddles off, and then we'll see what I choose. Right, now that I've got the bridge to where I like it, I have had a scrounge around in all of my spears bins and I have found enough things to finish this base. I have got tuners with retainers and screws, neck bolts with cup washers, pots, knobs, a cap, it's 47k, bridge with screws, pickup with screws and foam, output jack with plate and screws, control cavity cover with screws, nut blank, Forstner bit for cutting, output jack hole. Foil tape, a packet of flat wounds, more on that later. I've got solder, calipers, 2 screwdrivers, the soldering iron is on, and I've got Joe Cocker on Spotify. Let's do this. It's always slightly nerve-wracking to do that, but it's lovely to be able to turn the fingerboard back over and you haven't drilled through it. Great. I have bought flat wound strings, and I would like to address something here, because I am on record as having said that I hate flat wound strings. Well, here's an example of how you can learn and grow as a human being. I have a fretless bass, which is an absolutely magnificent fretless bass. It is the very first fretless bass that I ever defretted myself, and that neck has been on multiple bodies over the years. It's currently on a Squire Jazz body, and it's very, very good. It's found its forever home. But I had round wound strings on it for years and years and years, and every 6 months or a year or so I would have to re-level the board. And the last time I did it, I realised, well, there's not a lot of that fretboard left. So in order to try and preserve what was left of it, I bit the bullet and I bought a set of Diodario chromes, flat wound strings, and I stuck them on this fretless bass. Well, I absolutely bloody love them. It took it took a good couple of hours of playing on it to sort of get used to them, but now I'm absolutely 100% converted to flat wound strings. For fretless anyway, I will have to try these on a fretted bass at some point. I'm considering getting a P bass and seeing if I can get get that real solid Motown sound out of it. That would be great if I could pull that off. But yes, so flat wound strings, not as dreadful as I once thought. There you go. Right. It is ready to take it across to the studio and see what it does, if anything. Well, I'm not too sure how to begin summing up on this because there's so much to say about it. The main thing is that it defies all expectation. I mean, I just built it out of just crap that I had lying around, simply because I felt the need and I had the time to do something, and this was the result. And yeah, it's great. I really, really like it. It sounds fantastic. It plays beautifully, but it messes with your perceptions. The neck is so narrow that when you have to swap over to a 4-string bass, as I did at a couple of gigs, I played a couple of live shows, and the songs were called where I had to go onto a 4-string, and of course I have a P bass on standby for all eventualities, which is not only good advice at a gig, but just good advice for life. But going from a 3-string to a 4-string neck, and it just felt huge. It felt enormous, because it just messes with your perceptions. But aside from that, yeah, I couldn't be happier with it. It's just a phenomenally good sounding and playing instrument, which no one expected, least of all me. Oh well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. I'll see you real soon.